to Media Queen TV. So excited about our topic today and our amazing guest. We are going to be chatting with Andrew Carter, the CEO of Global Publishing Group, about why artificial intelligence is dangerous for budding authors. A little bit about Andrew before we chat with him. He's a professional pilot, an entrepreneur, author, business mentor, a philanthropist, public speaker, and of course the CEO of the award-winning Global Publishing Group. He's run 3 highly successful businesses and founded 2 not-for-profit organizations. He's a business leader acknowledged for his strategic and marketing intellect and is a recognized authority on aviation, leadership, decision-making, and business turnaround. After selling his first business, Andrew started teaching his business success principles to other business owners through his books and personal mentoring, making improvements of literally hundreds of thousands of dollars to their bottom line profits every year. He then took the audacious step of creating the most unique aviation museum in the country, which attracted visitors from around the world. His unique strategy, systems, publishing, and marketing tools for wealth creation are empowering thousands around the world to improve their lives. He's using seminars and workshops to educate and inspire others, and in fact has a fantastic 3-day event coming up in Brisbane from the 24th to the 26th of March, which we'll be chatting about today as well. For anyone who wants to write a book, specifically business owners, non-fiction, how-to books, Global Publishing Group is a specialist in that. And through his consulting and his not-for-profit entities, books, publishing, and business education companies, Andrew has wowed and transformed the lives of business people from all walks of life, including thought leaders, business CEOs, retailers, entrepreneurs, and authors. Welcome, Andrew.
Thank you very much. It was a lengthy introduction, but well worthwhile. Well worth the wait. So thank you, Aldwyn.
Yes, well, you've achieved quite a bit there, I must say, Andrew, in your time.
I've been around a little while. You can see the grey hairs. So, yeah, I've had time to achieve a few things.
Yes, fantastic. Now, you do have a 3-day event coming up, which I'd love to know more about, and we'll pop the link in there shortly. But before we get on to that and talk about artificial intelligence, such a hot topic for the moment, and how that's affecting, authors and budding authors and what they need to be aware of, we'll be chatting about all of that today. So before we do that, a little bit of your background, Andrew, and how you first got into the publishing industry yourself.
Yeah, so as you said, my background was largely aviation. That's what I'd done after school. Eventually got out of that, and I'd always had that itch to get into business, which I suppose many of your listeners, viewers have been much the same, and did that. And back in 2005, and I was following all of the greats at the time, all of the greats both in Australia and from overseas. And I spent over $100,000 on my own education just in marketing and stuff like that. Applied all of that directly in my business, and then I sold that business after 3 years. So I managed to start off at a very strong, double it, and then double it again within that time, and sold it off for a great rate. So I was effectively retired at age 37, not quite sure what to do with myself. And I found a lot of people started hearing about my success in business and were approaching me wanting to know how to get into business or how to better their business. So I started just showing them the same basic principles that, helped develop my business. And then I found more and more people were after my time. So it became a sort of coaching business. But what I really needed was something that got me better known, established my credentials, my authority, and answered all of those simple questions, so you weren't wasting your time dealing with all of the low-hanging fruit the whole time. And so that's when I met Darren Stevens, and he'd published a book, and he'd started Global Publishing Group to help entrepreneurs. And so through him, we worked on a business book for me, which went on to have great success and helped me do exactly what I wanted to do. It was something that you could give away. It could help people in its own right. But if they wanted more help, they knew that you were the authority, and they'd come in. So by default, effectively, I ended up business coaching and in writing a book that way. And I've since gone on to write other books and have the same result. And I've seen what it's done for all of the authors through Global Publishing Group. So when the opportunity became available, I purchased that company, and that's what I'm running today.
Fantastic. And Global Publishing Group is Australia's only entrepreneurial publisher, founded in Melbourne in 2007. So you've been around for a long time now. When we know the stats are, 80% of businesses fail in the first 5 years, and then 80% of those fail in the next 5 years. So you guys are obviously doing something right, and you've helped a whole lot of authors get out in the marketplace, and not just produce a book, but actually change their lives. So can you share a bit about how actually doing a book does change people's lives?
Yeah, sure. And obviously, so we're talking about how-to type books here,
Yes.
writing a non-fiction book. But the whole point is we're not just teaching people how to write a book. There's a lot of people out there who claim that they can do that now, and they're all making claims of, within 60 days, 30 days, 14 days. Look, we're talking about an actual physical book, not an e-book. And we're talking about using that to establish credibility and authority. It makes you stand out in the marketplace. But not only are we teaching that, we're teaching what we call the game behind the game, how to really monetize from your book. So we work on a back end. We also work on developing your business. So the book is what's going to draw the right type of customer to your business. But we're also going to do a lot behind the scenes with your business and the back end products of your book and establish a value ladder for you, which brings in all sorts of wealth that people can't imagine is possible. More than that, because we're an entrepreneurial publisher, we don't have the limitations of self-publishing or traditional publishing. So we've actually brought together the best of both of those worlds, eliminated all of the negatives, and that allows us to make tens of thousands and in some cases hundreds of thousands of dollars for authors before the book is even printed. Now, that's just unheard of. That hasn't been done before, and that's only possible through entrepreneurial publishing.
Amazing. And the 3-day event, of course, coming up. Let's talk a little bit about that. Coming up in Brisbane. I'm going to pop a link to bestsellerevent.com into the comments here. So what's going to happen at this 3-day event?
So the 3-day event, it's at Voco in Brisbane, the North Quay in Brisbane, a fantastic venue, and it's a 3-day workshop. So it's not a pitch fest. I'm not going to have multiple speakers all up trying to sell things. I'm not going to be talking for 3 days straight. I'm going to deliver incredible content and have people workshop with us. And so we're actually going to work on people's businesses, their business idea. People who've never been in business before come to these workshops and get a good idea about it. One of them turned up. He had no business concept, no idea whatsoever. After having attended the workshop, he went off, created a book that's become a bestseller. And from the business that's created for him, he's making $1 million a year, every year. So that's what we intend to do. We'll work through people. We show them the full behind-the-scenes secrets of the publishing industry. We explain everything that very few other people explain. We'll talk about how to establish your credibility, your authority, how to build immediate trust. And we will work deliberately with you to get your title and subtitle done and tested within the room. We'll look at doing the back cover. There's a real science to the back cover to get your book sold. Basically, as a rule of thumb, you've got 7 seconds to attract someone's attention with the front cover and about 14 seconds to sell them with the back cover. We'll work on creating all of the internal contents, like getting your chapters sorted out inside. And then with the techniques we're going to teach at that weekend, you can actually create the content for the entire book in under 3 hours. Right?
Amazing.
Yeah. And we're not talking about using AI, because that's where the rest of this conversation is going to go. I'm talking about you creating the entire content for your book in under 3 hours. So we've had other authors do it. Some of them have taken up to half a day, but we've had authors who've made hundreds of thousands of dollars from a book that literally took them less than half a day to create.
Amazing. And, that is huge. There's a whole system behind this. And, a lot of people might think, oh, geez, it takes ages to do a book. It's such a big thing. People time poor, all those kinds of things. But you actually have a system, proven system, and you've helped so many authors get out there now with their book. And that's exactly what you'll be showing. And I've actually attended the 3-day event before, and it is brilliant. There's a lot of great content in it and great connections to be made as well. There's always awesome people that attend these events that are up to big things in life, like you are, wanting to share their story and share what they do and how they help people with what they do. So coming to artificial intelligence now, some of us might have heard of ChatGPT, that actually you just put a term into this website now, and it basically searches the internet looking for content and produces stories for people now. So what are your thoughts about artificial intelligence, Andrew?
Well, it's yet to be proven. I mean, it's going to be. It's like all these things. It's a tool. I look at a gun. A gun in itself is not a bad thing. Used incorrectly, it's just a tool. But used incorrectly, it's lethal. And so everything that's available to us are just tools. And obviously, AI is going to be the same. And in the future, it can be a huge help. But I can also see it being used incorrectly. The initial concerns I have around it, there's been getting a lot of media and PR at the moment. It's all a big build-up about how successful it is. It can pass the bar exam for a law. It can pass the medical exam. It can write papers that will pass university courses. When you go and look into it, there's actually a fair bit more behind it than that. But eventually that's the stage it'll get to. But the two issues I see is, one, there's no humanity behind it. There's no humanization of your story. So you can't get, when we're talking about writing a book, we're talking about writing a business book with your personal story, right? Because it's your story that readers connect with and builds that bond and trust and that connection. So this is a really essential part, and that humanizing the story, I haven't seen AI do it yet. But my real concern with it is every bit of technology that comes along, we seem to be dumbing down as a society. So when mobile phones come in, like every single person listening to this who's over the age of, say, 30, used to remember at least 10 phone numbers, probably close to 20, right? Since a mobile phone's come about and it stores everybody's number, no one even remembers their partner's number anymore, right? They can't recall just one single phone number. And GPS was much the same. We all knew how to navigate and get around without GPS. We all knew how to read a Refidex or a Melways or whatever you were using at the time. People now struggle to read a map. That doesn't mean anything to kids today. They don't physically know what to do with a map. And people who've been traveling the same way to work every day but using a GPS to do it, you'd think that they'd automatically be able to find their way to work without a GPS, but they can't. So my concern with AI, with generation coming up through it, is that they're not going to be able to structure a story. They're not going to be able to humanize a story. They're not going to be able to do these things because they don't have to. They simply put a couple of questions into Chat GPT, for example, and it'll pump out all the information they need to pass a test or to submit an essay. So that, in the short term, they're the biggest concerns I see.
Yeah, absolutely. And the artificial intelligence software cannot share your personal story. There's no way that it knows anything about your personal story, and that's where we really connect with people, and that's what builds trust. And we know that there's been more scammers than ever before, online and offline, since COVID particularly. And so a lot of people are wondering, who can they trust? And if you don't share your personal story, then we don't connect with you, and that's something that artificial intelligence will never be able to do.
No, and when artificial intelligence is researching this stuff to come up with it, it's going to find what's already available, right? So basically, things like this, we're getting on to have a chat, we're getting on to share a story. If AI, all it knows about me is what's already online. So you might as well go to my website and you can already learn that much about me. It's not telling you anything new. So yeah, look, this building trust is a big deal. And that's why we use books, and we use physical books. People always question that, but what I should make clear now is that since 2011, year on year, physical books have been increasing in sales. So, and obviously that peaked in 2022 when we had the height, 21 when we had the height of the pandemic lockdowns. But even since post-COVID, the number of books being sold is greater than at any year pre-COVID. So the demand for physical books is continuing to increase. People now want more how-to type books. They're looking more. The more that things like AI and that come on board, and the more we get the really crappy, poor quality ebooks becoming available, the more people are looking for quality information from a quality source. And they're turning back to what we used to turn to before COVID, before the internet, which was physical books. So that's what people are doing. If you use a physical book to tell your story, you will build that trust and you'll build that connection with people. And I just can't see how AI can do that.
And honestly, how many people really read ebooks? We hear about ebooks, but really, how many people actually look at them? There's nothing quite like having a hard copy book in your hand and absorbing it that way. It really is a fantastic way to go.
I agree. And I think More now too, because people have to look at screens before they go to work. They're looking at screens all day at work. They're looking at screens on the way home from work. They're probably having to look at a screen to do work when they get home. The last thing you want to do when you want to relax is look at another screen like a Kindle or an ebook on your computer. So that's why I think the people have been turning back to physical books.
Yeah, exactly. I heard a stat the other day that the average person spends 44 years of their life watching screens. 44
Wow.
years of your life. Oh my gosh. So really, getting out and connecting with nature and looking over in the distance as well. Like this will cause a lot of issues with eyesight as well, with a lot of people just focusing on the short range screens as well is going to create a lot of issues around that. So yeah, having a book is absolutely invaluable, a physical book, and it builds trust and authority like nothing else out there. And of course, is a fantastic thing to have if you want to get publicity as well. And the story of Robert Kiyosaki, the author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Now, in 1997, he wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and it wasn't until 2000, 3 years later, he appeared on Oprah. And at the end of the 1 hour show, Oprah said to him, "Congratulations, Rich Dad. We've just sold you 1 million books." And he was making $5 US per book at the time. And so that's $5 million he just made at the end of a 1 hour show. So really having a book is a foundation that once you have that, you're then seen as an expert, and then journalists will want to interview you. And then that can take things really exponential for you from there. However, if you don't have a book, there's no way you're seen as a credible expert as much as someone who does have a book in your field.
And that's the thing I've always found amazing. You could have exactly the same information you have before you publish a book, but you know yourself, the media just not interested in talking to you. The mere fact that you go and put that information into a book and it's published, now you are seen as the authority, and the media can promote you as such. And rightly or wrongly, that's just the reality of it. That's what happens in today's society. And that's why you need a physical book too. Think about all the interview programs. Think about any morning show you can watch now, any of the late night TV shows where there's a host. When he's interviewing someone, when he's introducing them to come onto the set, he doesn't say, "Now here's such and such who's written such and such an ebook," does he? No, they always say, "Here's so-and-so who's written this book," and they hold the physical book up to the camera. And again, that's to establish the authority and credibility in the viewer's minds before they bring that guest out. So, yeah, the whole book and the media has been an interesting dynamic, but it is the easiest way to generate free media and PR is by having a physical book, being the author of one.
Yes, and a lot of talk shows too, they love to give away books as well.
Yeah.
I did PR for a lady called Shah Moore recently, and she did the Girlfriend Hour TV right here on the Gold Coast. And on one of her sessions, she actually gave everyone a copy of one of the books of someone she interviewed. So that kind of thing is fantastic on talk shows, to actually be able to give a hard copy book out to people, or if you're doing events, speaking at events, etc. That kind of thing can be really, really powerful to do that, and a great way again to connect with the audience, to sign the book. There's nothing quite like it. When someone passes over, to have a signed copy of their book, that's really invaluable, isn't it? It's really leaving a legacy every time you sign a book and you share that knowledge and wisdom. So for those who might be thinking,
I'll just interrupt you for a second, because this is just a little tidbit we haven't discussed before. But believe it or not, if you ever meet a personality or celebrity, if you sign your own book and put your phone number at the bottom of it and hand it to them, you're quite likely to hear back from them. It's just that law of reciprocity, and that they're grateful that you've given them a signed copy of your book, even though you think you're nothing and they're a huge celebrity. We've had so many authors do that with such success, it's been ridiculous. So anyway, just thought I'd throw that in there.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. Now, we've just done a press release, so we're going to be going all out with media on this whole topic in the next month. And in the press release, we've got a stat there that 84% of the Western world have a book in them. Now, what about for the skeptics out there that don't think that they have a book in them? What do you say to those people, Andrew?
If you're in business, I'd say, honestly, if you need a book, if you're in business, it's a case of publish or perish. It is getting harder to stand out these days than ever before. And I'm talking about both online and offline. So how do you do it? A book is the number one way to stand out amongst the crowd, to generate attention and build immediate trust and credibility. So I think when that 84% statistic, that's probably a lot of us have got the next Harry Potter in us, or we've got the next Lord of the Rings, but a lot of people have got a non-fiction book in them. A lot of people want to tell their story. And a lot of people don't feel worthy of it. And especially if you're in business and you've got a lot of competition, you might be thinking, well, there's 100 people in this space all doing the same thing I'm doing. We're all exactly the same. No, you're not. You will have approached it slightly different to your competitors. You will have knowledge that your competitors don't have. And by putting that into a book and by humanizing that book with your story and your journey, as well as what it is you're trying to tell them, people will connect with that. And that's how you attract your tribe. So you're now standing out to the people who want to know more from you, the people who are going to come to you and wanting to buy more. So it literally is a case of publish or perish in business. If you want to stand out, build that immediate trust and get ahead far quicker than any of your competitors, you need to do something unique to stand out. Everyone online is going to promise you that they know how to do it. They're going to come up with all these different things, charge you these different amounts. And some of those work. Don't get me wrong. Some of them work right up until there's an algorithm change. And then you go back to square one. A book will always be there. A book has a shelf life of about 5 years. A book gets passed around 7 to 9 times on average. So you're getting into the hands of your more the focused customer, the type of customer you're actually looking for. You're far more likely to reach with a book. And in that, look, it takes 2 to 3 hours to read the sort of non-fiction books we create. And you may be interrupted during that time. You may be going to get a coffee or a phone call might come through. But generally, that's 2 or 3 hours that person has spent engaged in your words, your thoughts, without any interruption. You can't get that anywhere else. You can't get that on a screen. You can't. There's just no other form of engagement like it. So it's proved to be an incredibly necessary tool, which, as I say, ironically, since 2011 has only become more and more popular year on year after year.
Yeah, love that. Now, interestingly, with Global Publishing Group, that you actually have created the highest number of best-selling authors as a percentage of authors published, which is amazing. And I'm sure there's people thinking, gosh, I may have a book in me, but where do I start with my book? What is the first step? And then what do we do next, etc.? How do people do books so quickly nowadays? And can you share some of your system and how you help people do that?
Yeah, sure. Because as I say, we're going to cover it all in great depth at the 3-day event anyway. But in a nutshell, one, you just need to believe you can do it. So we spent a little bit of the first morning talking about mindset, just to let people know that this isn't an unachievable dream. And because of the systems we've got in place, because of the connections in the industry we have, we are very easily able to help people create best-selling books. And so best-selling authors are highly sought after by the media. Your book will sell far more because bookstores are after books that sell well, which by very definition is what a best-selling book is. So we look at it very, very in a straightforward manner. We work out exactly who your ideal customer or client is and what message you want to get to them, okay? So what are their wants, fears, desires, pain points? What is it you're trying to help them with? Because this is the other thing. Whenever people talk about wealth creation, if you're just going out chasing dollars, you're never going to get wealthy. You always want to be able to help people. You need to be able to solve a problem in particular. Once you can solve people's problems, money comes flowing in. So that's not the issue. So establish who your ideal client or customer is, what it is that you need to tell them, and what it is you want them to do next. This is the biggest problem with book writers. People just write a book and think, I'm done. No. Once people have connected with you, people are interested in what you're saying or doing, they'll want more information from you. So how do they take action? So you need a call to action at the end of your book. Particularly, you want them to drive them to your website so they can get more information and take action with you. So you know what the end's going to be. Come up with the introduction. It should be fairly simple. And then how do you get from the introduction to the end? Just think about it in a natural course of action. What are the steps you'd have to take? And write those steps down. Just get a sheet of A4 paper and write down at the top of that sheet what one of those ideas is. And then write it down on another one, write down another one. Now, on the desk in front of you, just position those sheets of A4 paper in a way that it makes a logical step between introduction and conclusion. And you now have all of your chapter headings. And then all you need to do under that is write down the bullet points that you'd need to address in that chapter to finalize that chapter and logically lead into the next chapter. Now, once you've got that, you simply have to pick up your mobile phone or your tablet or your computer, just hit record and just record yourself talking about each of those bullet points. Read out the title of that chapter, read out each bullet point, and then talk to that bullet point. And you have now effectively got all of the content for your book. Now you just have to have that transcribed. And we use otter.ai, which is just such an easy way to do things these days, which technically does use some sort of AI. But, you can have people transcribe this for you. But as I said, you look at Ian Marsh, who I think would be quite well known to quite a few of your viewers, and he literally did exactly that concept. Back in the day of dictaphones, he didn't even have a mobile phone to do it on. Dictaphone, and he sent that off. He had it transcribed. So the whole thing took him less than 4 hours. He basically described how he wanted his cover to look based on the science we give behind it. Everyone else did all the work for him, and that book's made him hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Amazing. Amazing, amazing. Now, we've got a few people joining us here on the different platforms we're streaming to right now. We're going out to Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. So thank you so much for those who've joined us. Let us know, where are you joining us from, for those who've joined us, and if you have any questions around putting a book out as well. Now, I know imposter syndrome is a big thing that can come up for people. And I always say, look, if you know 10% more than someone else, you can teach it. Right, so you're never going to know everything about your topic, because things are constantly changing in all areas of life and all different fields. Things are constantly changing. So if you know 10% more, you can teach it. Okay, and the thing is, a lot of people do die with a book in them. A lot of people, I think, have regrets at the end of their life that they didn't actually share their stories and share their wisdom with people. And so I think it really is something that once people do the book, they feel so proud that they have done it. And once you start, they say 50% of anything you do is just starting. So once you start, you're actually a good chunk of the way there, and then you'll find that the pieces will fall into place. So there's a great saying I love, which is, when the why is strong enough, the how will show up. And the why is strong enough, the how will show up. And you have a fantastic system there where you show people exactly how to do it step by step, which is brilliant. And, next level, you can also do a lot for people when it comes to this as well. So, the 3-day event, what can they expect to walk away with at the 3-day event?
So, they'll understand how easy it is for them to actually do this. As I say, they'll have the front cover design brief completed, so they can go off and get that done themselves if they want. More importantly, the science behind that back cover, that's the all-important part. If you want to know why some books outsell other books, it's always to do with the title, and it's always to do with the back cover. And I'm yet to find another publisher that actually understands this, because they're not marketers. Publishers are not marketers. We are marketers who got into a publishing business. So we understand how to make that back cover work. So we're going to teach that. So people are going to have a back cover that actually sells. They're going to have the content laid out in their book. So we're going to work on all of those pain points for their customer or client with them. They'll actually make up bullet points on the back of the book, and they can be used as chapter titles as well. And we'll work on the game behind the game, the business behind it. We'll show them how to physically monetize the business. So we'll show them how to make at least $40,000 from their book before that book is even printed. Now, I don't know anyone else who can do that.
That's amazing. Phenomenal. Yeah. It's yes, the game behind the game, right? The game plan. That is really where it's at. And you also have Sharon Jerd joining you as well. What's she going to be speaking about?
Yep, Sharon's coming along. Always great to hear from her. That's our surprise. That's she's our guest, but she's going to give an hour and a half of absolute value. You're going to be blown away by what she's got to present. But that's the ace up my sleeve. We're keeping quiet about that one. Thank you, Aldwyn.
So you'll have to come along to the event to find out what she's going to talk about.
But she's always worth seeing. Doesn't matter where she's at, always worth seeing. But no, it'll be worth seeing her at this event, certainly. Yep.
Okay, brilliant. All right, fantastic. And what are some myths around book publishing that people might be thinking? What are some myths?
Yep. So we probably haven't got time to cover all of them on this particular call, but I like to talk about the 7 myths. And the first one is what we've already covered. It takes too long to write a book, and it just doesn't. Like, people are thinking of Hemingway, used to lock himself away in a lodge for 6 months at a time. I think even Ian Fleming used to head off to the Caribbean, and he used to lock himself away with a bottle of whatever. Look, it's not like that. It's just not. We're, as business owners in particular, who is primarily who we help, we just simply don't have the time, the resources to spend a lot of time on this stuff, right? So we're showing people how to create this book quickly and easily. If you do this 3-day workshop, you'll easily be able to create this in just a very short time. The content within half a day, as I said. So that's probably the biggest myth, and if done correctly, it's not a problem. The other myth is that books don't make any money. And I agree. If you go through a traditional publisher, no, they don't. You make 3 to 5% on the cover price, which you don't even get to set. That's all set by a traditional publisher. They have full design rights over your book, how it'll look, what the cover will look like, how it'll be typeset. You don't get a say in any of that sort of stuff. So, yeah, look, if you do traditional publishing, there's not a whole lot of money to be made per book. Self-publishing is much the same. Self-publishing, you can make a lot more per book, because obviously whatever the book cost you, subtract that from the price of the book that you're selling it for, and you've made that much money, which sounds fantastic, but you can't get the volume. A lot of bookstores in particular and other platforms won't take on self-published books, so you're limited in your reach. As I say, if you're using an entrepreneurial publisher, which is us, you're actually going to be able to generate tens of thousands of dollars before you even publish the book, and a hell of a lot more afterwards if you're concentrating on the back-end products and your game behind the game. So they're probably the two biggest ones. One I've heard that people are concerned that if you go through systems like this, you're going to be left with with boxes of books left in your garage or something like that. I never knew that was a myth, but we've had enough people come back to us saying this is a concern, so it must be out there. Yeah, sure. If you self-publish and you've bought all these books and you've got no way of distributing them, yes, you are stuck with a garage full of books. But we have a system in place. We market heavily before the book is even being printed. And in most cases, if you use our system to monetize the book before it's printed, you've already pre-sold so many books. So in most cases, we've already pre-sold 1,000 or 2,000 copies of a book. Many times we've pre-sold 5,000 copies. We've done 10, 13. The most we've done is 21,500 books pre-sold before the book was even printed. So that's never, ever been a concern for us. But I believe in the average person's mind, that's one of the concerns that's out there.
Thank you for that. And can we talk now about the difference between print on demand and actually getting a whole lot of books printed initially? What are the differences, pros and cons?
Yeah, well, print on demand is a handy topic, a handy concept if it's used correctly. So where print on demand works really, really well is if someone in Scandinavia wanted to buy my book, it's going to cost me more to post it to Scandinavia than it is to, print it. And so what I can do is I can have it just one single book print on demand in Scandinavia and post it to them. I won't make quite as much money out of it, but it meets everybody's requirements. What's happening is a lot of so-called publishers in Australia are now trying to convince everyone, we can sell you into this course. You do this with us. They're not giving you all of the science behind it. They're not giving you all of the marketing. You're getting a finished product, but that product in and of itself is of no use. And they're saying to you, so that you can avoid being stuck with a garage full of books, you only need to print as many as you require. So if you only need 5, go and print 5. Okay, well, there's only one place you can really get that done, and that's going to cost you a lot more per book, and then that book's going to have to be posted to you anyway. So it is not at all a cost-effective method. If all you're doing is using a book as a business card to try and stand out, that's suitable, but that's never, ever going to get you the recognition you need. And as I say, the whole point of the book is to stand out, to grab attention, to stand out from your competitors and build that trust and credibility. And you need to move volume. Moving a few books at a time is just no help.
Great. And what about copyright? Like you see sometimes books out there have the same title by different authors. So how strict is copyright when it comes to titling the book?
Well, copyright is very strict. So let's make that clear right from the start. And again, we were talking about the issues with AI. AI doesn't have any concern about that. AI is taking stuff that's out there. So it's probably spun a little bit differently, perhaps, we don't know. So copyright's a major issue. Copywriting an exact title is not a problem as long as you have a different subtitle. That is quite acceptable, unless the title is trademarked. You mentioned Rich Dad, Poor Dad before. That title is actually trademarked. So I can't go out and put out Rich Dad, Poor Dad in Australia as the subtitle and think that that's different. That title is actually trademarked. So trademark is a different thing to copyright. But no, look, it's frustrating that you'll come up with a brilliant title, one that you think is completely unique, only to find that someone else has taken it before. If it really sells your message and what you want to do, as long as the subtitle is different, that is acceptable.
Very interesting. And like copyright with videos, for example, sometimes if people change like 25% of a video, they can get away with that, and it's okay. You can use someone else's content, but just change a little bit, and then that becomes like your content. So yeah, I wonder how much of that actually goes on in
Yeah, so look, the rule of thumb, everyone's, again, we're talking about myths. The myth is that if you change 10% of the written word, then you're okay, you're safe. That's not the case at all. So I wanted to just get rid of that myth completely. If you've got any copyright issues, you should definitely see a copyright specialist, see a solicitor or a lawyer who specialises in that. But no, you've got to be very, very careful about it in this space. And we're using technology now to check how much of those sort of things are plagiarised. So a lot of people think, well, if I copy less than 10% of someone's text and I accredit them, if I then put, by Robert Kiyosaki at the end of it, I'm okay, I'm covered. Not necessarily. That's not always the case. What you can do, and what we find, our authors will do this sort of thing, if you're really stuck for an idea, if just say you're doing a book on, I don't know, colic or something like that, you might go and read 4 other books on colic. You get the ideas from that, and then you go and put what you learned from those 4 books in your own words. Yes, a lot of the concepts may seem very similar, but you haven't copied them and you haven't used their words, so there's no copyright issue there.
And that's a big point you say, in your words is so important. That's something artificial intelligence will never be able to put something in your words, in your tone, in the way that you speak. And so even if people do use it, it won't sound like the people, because it's not going to have the same tone. Everyone speaks differently in how they express themselves. So it's a very interesting times we're in, and it is making people very lazy. It's like now a lot of kids, I think 80% of kids now under the age of 5 are on devices, and so they're forgetting even how to write now.
Wow.
This is a real concern. I mean, imagine if they lose their device and they need to communicate, and they need to say, write something down, and they just have no idea how to do it. It's like reading maps since GPS.
And not remembering phone numbers anymore. It's the same thing. So it is going to, I don't know that it's necessarily the dumbing of society, like the intelligent level still stays high, but yeah, if you can't communicate through writing, well, where does that leave you? Maybe we're just showing our age. Maybe the kids of the future go, how were we ever concerned about this thing? But it does have some major issues. It really does.
I think it's making people lazy in that some people think they don't have to think. It's like Google predictive text as well. That didn't used to be around, before. And now Google is predicting what you're going to say and writing the words for you. It's like tapping the words on your phone when you're prompted on your phone as well. So it's very interesting times. And I think that the uniqueness of each individual, of them being able to share their voice and own their story and own what they do in their personal experience. So there might be different how-to books on similar topics, but no one's going to have quite the same version of that as you do because of your own personal experience. So actually being able to share that, I think, is absolute gold when it comes to connecting with your audience. And I think people can tell when they read something that comes directly from you, or if it comes from a robot, from artificial intelligence. I think you can tell.
Well, while we're on that topic, I mean, predictive text, I'm glad you brought it up. How many times does that get it right? I don't know for you, but for me, it's wrong more often than it's right. So that should be the concern right there. But yeah, that thing you're saying about in your voice, and this is why we prefer people to actually talk and have it transcribed. And people say, well, that's not proper English. That's not what I learned in school. Yeah, no one cares, right? People engage with not how an academic writer. Academic writing is usually boring and full of jargon, right? We want to always aim our writing at a 15-year-old, because if a 15-year-old can understand it, everyone in where you're aiming at will definitely be able to understand it. But also when you're talking, your cheekiness or your sense of humor may come through. And what you'll find is when people meet you for the first time after having read your book, they'll know it's you because that cheekiness or that sense of humor or that drollness or that seriousness, whatever you expressed in that book, that's part of your personality. That's what people connect with in the book. And then when they meet you, and we have a lot of authors say this, they go, oh my God, you're exactly like I expected you to be. Or, you sound exactly like you did in the book, even though there's no sound coming from a book, it's only written word. I've always found that very interesting.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. And don't let perfection get in the way of progress. I know a lot of perfectionists, right? A lot of perfectionists out there. I know I've certainly been a perfectionist myself as well. And I must say, I like to type because I've been a journalist for years and I'm used to typing. However, I can see how if you actually speak out your chapters, how much quicker that would make it for you. And so for those who really don't like to speak things out, that want to sort of analyze it and move things around as they're typing and all that kind of thing, what are some tips you give people around discipline, around actually making the time to actually do those chapters, whether it's typing or speaking, but particularly typing will take longer. So what about some tips on being consistent with the discipline with doing that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So first and foremost, just even if you do speak it out, you can still arrange it. That's the whole point. You're getting it transcribed. When it comes back, you might have found you've said too many things and you need to cut some bits out. And you might go, well, that would look better there. And so you want to change that around. When you're talking about perfectionism, we find people just sit there going, I don't know whether that chapter should be number 1 and that chapter should be number 2 or vice versa. Don't worry about it. Just get the content down first. And after you've got the content down, you can swap chapters around. You can, and the other thing is too, people always think, well, let's get back to your question. People think you need to start at the beginning and work your way through. No, if today you wake up and you feel inspired to write chapter 7 and you haven't done the other 6 chapters yet, you go and write or speak chapter 7. So there's 2 answers to your question. One, it should be, when you feel inspired to do it. But then a lot of people just won't take that action. It's the old action breeds motivation sort of thing. You need to take action first. So we've had some authors who just would block away Friday afternoon, 1 or 2 hours on a Friday afternoon. Every single Friday they would sit down, and even if nothing came to them, they would allocate that time to sit there and think about their book and try and put something down. I've had other people who just work half an hour each morning or each afternoon, and even if they're not, we'll show a whole system, and in the workbook we give, there's just a little folder, and there's ways that you can add to it without actually making content itself at the time, but that will help with creativity at a later stage. So if you allocate 30 minutes a day or every second day, we have some people who just give it an hour or 2 on a weekend. And if you're using our process, even just doing 1 or 2 hours on a weekend, you can still finish a book within a month.
So fantastic. And what about number of chapters? What's the ideal number of chapters and the ideal word count for a how-to book?
Yep. So the ideal number of chapters is exactly how many you need. If you can tell your story in 2 chapters, you do it. If you need 20 chapters, you do it. So no number for chapters. But yeah, I'm glad you brought up the word count. I probably should have mentioned that earlier. When we're talking about how-to type books, I should have mentioned too that non-fiction books are outselling fiction books at 2.2 to 1. So more people are searching for non-fiction than fiction, and most of that is how-to type books, okay? How to get ahead in business, how to treat colic, how to treat depression, how do I make money from art, how to, which ironically, well, no, probably not that surprisingly, is also the most typed words into YouTube, believe it or not, how to such and such and such and such. So what we want to do is we don't want a book that's more than 150 pages. Now, I know people think, well, I've got so much to tell. Yeah, I know you do, but you don't have to tell everything in the first book. And I'm telling you now, with the connections we have in the industry, we follow this stuff very closely. And I can tell you for a fact, books over 180 pages in the how-to sector, fewer people are buying them, right? The numbers drop off dramatically. So it's got to be under 180 pages. Then what we're finding is if it's more than 150 pages, more people are purchasing it, but they're not finishing reading it. So you need to get your book in under 150 pages. You're not trying to tell everything. You're trying to solve a problem and you're trying to build a bond and connection and establish why you are the authority in that space. And if they want more from you, they go to their website, they connect you, or they buy your next book, which is going to follow it up. Now, 150 pages works out to be about 30,000 words. And given the normal rate of speech, which is about what I'm speaking now, that's how we end up. You can talk your entire book in under 3 hours.
Amazing. Wow. So for those who've done workshops even, they could probably even just transcribe some of their workshop content if they've got it recorded, or webinars.
Yeah, this is really, really common. We've got people doing that. We talk about ways to use other people's content in your own book too, make compilation books. We cover a whole lot over that 3-day event. There is a lot involved in getting this done quickly and easily. And if you're showing the right way, it's surprising how quick this will come about. And a lot of that resistance, a lot of those barriers that people have in their mind just melts away.
Wow, fantastic. It's so exciting to do a book. Now, you've got 3 books yourself. Can you share a bit about the books that you've done?
Well, the first one was a business book. And as I say, it was a case of in it, there's probably not that much exactly new in it. In fact, the concepts are well-known concepts. But what I found is I'd been seeing all the experts from in Australia and from around the world, and I find there's a difference between what they say and you thinking you know it and actually knowing and understanding it. And so what I did is I wrote my book in a way that these common phrases and these almost cliches actually had some meaning. I explained it in a meaningful manner and showed how I was able to make that work in my business and for other businesses. So that was why I think that made the connection. And that ended up being the course book used by the University of Canberra in their marketing department. So, it obviously was impactful in that way. And that's the point I want to try and get across. I'm not the first person to write a business book. I'm sure as hell not the last person to write a business book, but I wrote a business book that I could understand my way. Now, we've published about 15 different business books, and I'm terribly sorry. The battery's about to die here. I didn't know I wasn't charged in. Excuse me for a minute.
Oh, that's okay.
Very unprofessional. I do apologise. So we've got about 15 different business books. Now, a lot of those all seem to cover the same concepts, but they all cover them in a completely different way. So they all talk to a completely different audience, which is my point. We all are looking to attract our tribe, our audience. So when you're talking about fear before, a lot of people fear that they'll be seen as an imposter. Well, no, you're not trying to position yourself as the expert. You're trying to position yourself as an expert, which will be the expert in your tribe's mind. So the people you attract like the way you talk, like the way you explain things. And even though you might be teaching about business and I'm teaching about business, they might just like the way you say it and explain it better than I do. And I'll find another tribe that likes the way I explain it. So that's where the success of that book came from. That's where the success of all books come from, and that's why you should be doing a book, even though you think the market might be saturated. The other books I did were historical books. As you said, I started an aviation museum in Australia, quite a unique one. It was a flying museum. The aircraft in that museum actually flew. I did a lot of research, and I found out about a very amazing Australian pilot. He became a fighter ace with just one leg during World War I. Now, if he was born in any other country, he would be a common household name here, but because he's Australian, no one knows anything about him. So I got information from both of his grandsons. I went and did a whole lot of first-person research from all the original documents from World War I, most of which is stored at the Australian War Memorial, and I completed the most complete book on Lieutenant Frank Albury, our one-legged fighter ace. And then from that, I've gone on to do a whole lot of other historical. So I did one on the Tavis Museum itself, on its unique collection. And I started with the beginning of aviation, the true facts of aviation, not as they're perceived in the media today. And then went on throughout the museum, and then went on to talk more about Australian airmen during the war and after the war, which of course shaped the country, created companies like Qantas, et cetera, and that's got the most complete and accurate list of all Australian fighter aces of World War I. Now, why that's significant is because the Australian War Memorial doesn't even have something like that. And secondly, most Australians don't even know that pilots flew during World War I, yet alone we had our own aces. So I consider that quite a significant product.
Amazing. And there would have been a bit of research there, obviously, as you shared there. So that
a lot of research.
Yeah. So with research books like that, with history books, you've got to get your facts right? That's something that would be harder to speak out because you need to get your facts right and study a bit of background.
Yeah, that one didn't take 4 hours, I can tell you.
Yeah. Fantastic. And what are some different ways people can monetize the book?
Right. So if you're going through an entrepreneurial publisher, and this is the only way you can do it, well, you could do it through self-publishing, but you will never be allowed to advertise in your book through traditional publishers, right? So what you're looking to do is remember, you've only got 150 pages, so you're not going to be able to convey all the information you want to convey. So you owe it to your reader to have resources in the back of your book where they can go to find more information or more assistance. And what you can do is find businesses that are complementary to yours, not competitive, complementary, and approach them and explain the statistics I gave earlier on. Unlike a magazine you're currently advertising in, which only lasts for 1 or 2 months, a book will last for 5 years. A book will be passed on 7, 8, or even 9 times. It is aimed at exactly your ideal client or customer. So you can charge a lot more for advertising in a book than you can for advertising in a magazine. And if you look at advertising rates in magazines these days, they're absolutely hideous. So you can quite easily approach companies and expect to get $10,000 to $12,000 for a full page ad in the back of your book. That's just one of the many tips and techniques that we'll show. And we've actually got full scripting on how to approach people for that sort of thing, how to get past the gatekeeper to get to those people to make those decisions. But for most businesses, it's hugely beneficial because a book always acts as a third-party independent advocate of you and your business. So if you've got a business book or if you've got any type of book and someone's advertised in the back of it, not only is it being distributed to more people, but that company, they can hand those books out themselves, and the book is acting as an advocate of their business. And so it's saying, well, this guy's an author, this person is an author, so this person is credible. And in the back of this book, they're advertising this business, so that business must be credible. And it's just the way the psychology works.
Yes, many ways you can monetize your book. And I know someone here on the Gold Coast who used to run lunch events, and she would charge a certain amount for the lunch and include the book in that as well. It's another way you can monetize is actually say that everyone gets a copy of the book and you actually include it in the price of the event, which I thought was quite a clever way to go. And then, of course, you can do things like giveaways to help market it because, of course, 80% of anything you do is marketing. So let's chat about marketing now. And marketing obviously will have a lot to do with how people profit as well. But what are some different ways people can market their book?
Well, now you're starting to get ahead of us because we actually run a separate weekend just on marketing. I actually have that coming up this weekend with the group we're currently working with. So that's very involved, and we actually use people like Aldwyn Altuney. That's how we've met. So that is a big part of it. You definitely do need. Let's start from the very beginning. It doesn't matter whether you're using the traditional publisher, you're self-published, or you're using a traditional publisher. You will be required to do the marketing yourself. Now, most people don't understand that. They think if you send the book off to a traditional publisher, they publish it, they do everything. They do, but they're not going to market your book. That will still be up to you. So you're definitely going to need to get a press release done, whether you do it yourself or I'd suggest you get it done professionally. You're going to need to get that out to media outlets. You're going to need to find an angle, something that's slightly different. Okay, we're not the only book publisher in the marketplace, but we're the only ones talking about the issues with AI and book creation at the moment. And that's why you've got us on your show. So find a topical angle and use that in your press release. You can do your own book launches. We have a special technique around that I would suggest because otherwise they can end quite disastrously. But you use that to then promote yourself on social media. As I say, being an author, it's actually a lot easier to get medium PR than without it. So we find it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Once you get picked up in one piece of media, especially now that they're all syndicated, others tend to follow you up and then it just starts to grow on itself. Also, we use our distributor through in Australia. They actively support us as a publisher. So what they're so impressed with the quality of work that our authors produce, they've told us whatever media our authors get, we're to send that on to Booktopia, and they will actually promote that to the bookstores ahead of time. And so, you've got to, as they say, the car, you've got to get the car up to 100, but once you've done that, they'll take over and take it up to 200. But that's what they're doing through us.
Yeah, very good. And now you touched on launches there. Now I've seen people do online and offline launches, and a lot more people are now going to the offline events. So how important would you say it is to do actually an offline and an online event, or would you say just do one or the other?
Look, that's a great question. What we've seen in this space of late is we've seen a lot of authors overseas doing book launches and not getting anyone attending. Okay. They're now going on social media and they're explaining the situation and how embarrassed they are. And all of these big name authors are then coming on. Like people like even Stephen King are coming on board going, don't worry, I remember doing one in such and such and only 2 people turned up, or, no one turned up. So look, it can be an issue. It depends how you promote it. Again, if you're a brand new author with a book that's never been heard of and you're trying to get the public to turn up, I think you're setting yourself up for failure. So really, you should be looking at more like inviting friends and family and colleagues and maybe people who advertised in the back of your book and other people who could help you. You want to be looking for networking opportunities. So if you can see people who can work with you and help sell your book or sell the products on it, or you can make some sort of joint venture deal with each other, you should be bringing them along and their people and using that to make a successful thing, and then publish that online. Have video and photographs of that saying, look how successful our book launch was, because it's all about the perception, and having it done like that looks far more successful than opening up to the public and having nobody turn up potentially.
That's a good point. And then collaborating with others, maybe at book launches, doing some giveaways. Maybe that could be something good to do too, or doing special offers at the launch. What about pre-selling the book before it's actually published?
Yeah, as I say, well, that's what we specialise in, and quite often we pre-sell 500, 1,000, 2,000 books. That's really, really common for us. We can help people. One of their biggest success has been in making people best-selling authors from the get-go. So we can actually pre-sell 5,000 up front. But again, we have a special script about how to go about that, how to reach people and do that, a system to follow to do it, and how to monetize it as well.
Brilliant. And a lot of compilation books are out now. In fact, I'm in about 15 compilation books myself, and I'll actually be working on my own full book this year. Now, compilation books I think are great for exponential marketing, I call them, because everyone's promoting to their people. Do you have authors too that combine with other authors and do compilation books, or do you always recommend that they do their own book?
No. In fact, I recommend compilation books. So one of the big things is, once you start associating with other successful people, you are automatically assumed to be successful also by what we call the halo effect, just by association, okay? So what we found, one of our classic examples, one of our best examples, is a guy who was introducing a new franchise into Australia. Now, he knew that he wasn't a franchisor himself. The new franchise wasn't well known, so he was going to struggle to get that known in Australia. So what he did is he went and interviewed the CEO of Clark Rubber and the CEO of Boost Juice and the CEO of, one of the bakeries, and all of these brands. And then he positioned himself and that brand in the middle. And how that works from a psychological point of view is you're reading through and you go, yeah, I know Clark Rubber. Oh, that's the CEO. Isn't that interesting? Oh, I know Boost Juice. Isn't this Janine Alice really interesting? And, oh, who's this guy? I don't know him, but he's surrounded by all these other successful brands and individuals. He must be a successful brand and individual himself. And as a result, he was able to sell a lot more franchises. So it's a very good way to gain credibility immediately. And even if you didn't include yourself in the book like that, if you don't feel you're the expert, go out and interview half a dozen or a dozen experts yourself. You're the author of the book that's got all these experts in it. So by association, you too must be an expert. And of course, you are learning a lot as you go along. If you've interviewed all these people, you're not putting everything you learn into the book. So you know more than that's in that book. So you've become an expert by osmosis almost, I guess.
And lots of ways you can multi-purpose all that content as well, and do videos and blogs and all sorts of other content on social media.
So when you talk about the monetizing of it, we're talking about the back end, and that's if you've done those sort of interviews, you've now got video products, you've now got written products, you've got the audio products, and more importantly, you've got a major network to send it out to. So you can get those people to assist you with they can help monetize the book for you. They can help distribute the book for you. And as you say, create a whole lot of content, which gives you back-end products, which relates to more sales, more joint venture. There's a lot to be said for compilation models, and we spend a fair bit of time talking about that in the 3-day event. But yeah, I'm a fan of it for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. And that really, as you say, that is your specialty, the game behind the game, how to monetize the books, not just have books that are sitting on shelves and not doing anything, actually get it out there. And another great thing to do is if you have a book is keep some in the car at all times, I would recommend, because you never know when you might want to give one to someone or build relationships is also, a huge thing with books. And so a lot of people do just give their books away because they want to build those relationships. And it is the law of reciprocity. That when you give once, it always comes back tenfold. You don't, of course, have to do that, but if you want to build relationships with people, it is always a great thing to do to give some books away as well. And so many other amazing things are going to be shared at the Publish for Profit workshop. The details are at bestsellerevent.com, which will pop up on the comments again there, bestsellerevent.com. Check it out. And future plans for global publishing. With some future plans.
Yeah, we want to keep doing what we're doing. We find this has made a major difference in people's lives over the last 15 years. It's going to continue to do so. We'd like to work on only doing a couple of events like this a year. We're hoping to work up to 3 events a year. People want us to people don't want to travel to the mountain anymore. We're finding it's just too difficult. We sort of need to be located where we are. We can't travel interstate at this stage. Pre-COVID, we had no trouble getting people to come from interstate or overseas. That's not quite the case anymore. But look, I'd encourage people to travel to Brisbane. We're not able to relocate this. We're not able to do it via Zoom because we workshop it, because we break into groups and do things, and because we walk around working with those groups and we work with individuals. There's so much involved. We've looked at trying to take it online, but to get the maximum enjoyment out of this, the maximum benefit out of this, to get everything done in the shortest time possible. And as you say, to have those network opportunities and to not have the distractions, it really needs to be done in person. So we're just continuing to grow the brand. We went a bit stagnant there over COVID. There was 3 years where not much was happening. Now we're back with a vengeance, and we're trying to get this into as many people as we can, help create more bestsellers. And we haven't really spoke about the cathartic nature of books as well. I mean, we've had people approach us with serious depression, serious health issues, people who were literally on the verge of suicide, who by completing a book, the cathartic exercises help them through that, and the issue is no longer with them. More than so, thinking they're the only ones suffering from it, they've now got a book out into the marketplace. And of course, all these people are coming out of the woodwork because they suffered the same problem. And so they're now looking to connect with these people. So these people who are on the verge of suicide have ended up becoming incredibly important people who've been very helpful to others. And you can't understand what a sense of pride and satisfaction you get knowing that just by delivering this system, just by working with someone through this issue and helping them create a book, not only have they changed their life around, they're changing the life of thousands of other people. And that's just so incredibly powerful. And that's really what I want to keep doing.
Yeah, I love that. It absolutely builds people's confidence. It also helps them with inner issues, as you said. If people have inner issues, often people, who do have depression or who are going through some hard times, often they don't have a lot of self-confidence. And so actually doing the book will absolutely help with that journey to overcome that. And then, of course, boost the finances as well. And you're leaving a legacy with every single book that you put out. It's not something that people throw out. It will be there really. I mean, you say 5 years, but I'd say for a lot of people, forever, that book will just keep going on. And generally, they don't get thrown out, so no, as long as
I'll just clarify that. We're talking about a shelf life. We're talking on the shelf in bookstores. So everyone these days is talking about only buying books online or only buying ebooks. The physical book goes on the shelf for about 5 years, but that's when you bring out the next edition or you bring out an updated version. So, yeah, you're quite correct. It can last 20, 30 years, a lifetime. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, congratulations for all the amazing work you're doing there, Andrew, with Global Publishing Group, and really looking forward to the event in Brisbane coming up. Details again here. It is going to be here, 3 days.
24th to the 26th of March, and it's VOCO 85 North Quay, Brisbane CBD. So it's
right
a
there.
fantastic venue. We're laying on morning and afternoon teas. You only got to take care of your own lunch. It is incredibly well catered. If nothing else, just come for the lunch. What we're doing, we hadn't discussed this, but for people who want to come in off this, if they do that now for an early bird special and for having tuned in on this, we'll give them the gold ticket. They'll get the gold ticket and the $1,500 worth of bonuses for the price of a silver ticket. So if they just buy the silver ticket, we'll automatically upgrade them to gold.
Which is amazing, which is only $97, right?
That's right. Yep.
Just $97 Australian. That is a crazy price. It's well worth traveling in from the Gold Coast and Sunshine Coast for those that are within range of Brisbane as well, or from interstate. I think this will be an amazing event and an absolute game changer and a life changer for you. And to learn these strategies will be invaluable. I would say it will be totally worth the investment in yourself. For those who do want to do a book and been sitting on the sidelines, or maybe you put a book out in the past and you want to do another book and take things to the next level, wherever you're at is absolutely perfect. I think it's perfect you've tuned in today. For those joining us, thank you so much for joining us. Let us know what you have got from this interview today. We'll be wrapping up shortly. I always like to leave with a quote, an inspiring quote for people. And a quote that I absolutely love is one from Gandhi, which is, be the change you wish to see in the world. Be the change you wish to see in the world. Do you have a favourite quote, Andrew?
Yes, I've got several, but I suppose the one I like the most is that if you can't find a good person, be one.
Oh, I love that.
We're all so busy concentrating on how we've been ripped off, or someone cut us off in traffic. And yep, I understand. Look, there are a lot of bastards out there, but there's a lot of great people too. And I think we can get overwhelmed with that. So yeah, if you can't find a good person, be one. If you seem to be surrounded by people who aren't good, more time for you to shine.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a great quote I actually shared on my socials just in the last 24 hours is, be kind to unkind people because they need it the most, right?
Yeah.
And as they say, hurt people. And there are a lot of people hurting out there. So the more that you actually are kind to yourself and kind to others, and the more that you step up and you're actually inspiring yourself by doing a book, for example, the more that will inspire others to then also step into their genius and actually express what they do, and to stop being the world's best kept secret, my friends, right? If that feels like you right now, then maybe it's time that you put yourself out there, and doing a book is a great way to do it. Great safe environment, and you will literally save yourself, I'm sure, decades of making the wrong choices by coming to this event, this 3-day event. I'm sure you'll be imparting decades of wisdom, right, Andrew, that'll save people a lot of time and money.
Definitely. And if you have a look at some of the testimonials on our site, you'll see that's what they're saying. We say that this will save you about 2 to 3 years of your life. No, the testimonials are all saying it saved us 5 years, and in some cases 10 years of our life. So
yeah, because you're going to
invest. And
there's
people who just won't do anything if they don't come to this workshop and get this underway.
Yes. How much longer are you going to put it off, right? Those wanting to do
exactly right.
And that's the thing. We invest in two ways. We either invest our time to save money, or we invest our money to save time, and time really is the most valuable thing. So you're going to invest one way or another. However, the 3 days here, I'm sure you will save decades of trial and error doing it the hard way yourself. And that's why I love seminars and events so much, because you just always learn something. Even if you think you know it all, right, you always learn something. You never learn less. And I think this will be no exception. And as I say, I've attended the event before and I've loved it. Lots of great content. You get the workbook and all those goodies. $97 is insane. That is such a good, that's just really probably just covering some of your costs, Andrew, if that, right?
Correct. So, it hardly even covers the catering really per person when you think about it over 3 days. But look, it's worthwhile. It's as I say, you're paying the $97, you're getting upgraded to $297, but it's a hell of a lot of fun. It's not just learning. Everyone enjoys the actual process we go through, and you'll enjoy the people that you meet. So well worthwhile. But
wonderful.
I'm biased.
Excellent. Any other final words before we wrap up today here, Andrew?
Just reinforce what I said, especially if you're in business. Honestly, publish or perish. There is this the single greatest strategy for marketing that exists. I just have not come across anything else like it. I'm only in this space because I haven't found anything else that works like this. It worked for me. It's worked for so many others. If you're not doing it, how are you going to stand out moving forward? So honestly, publish or perish.
Yeah, I love it. Publish or perish. We've been chatting with Andrew Carter here on Media Queen TV about why artificial intelligence is dangerous for budding authors, and a whole lot of other tips about getting books out and behind the scenes of what it takes to produce a profitable book as well. And a whole lot more will be covered in the 3-day event. So check it out, the 3-day Publish for Profit event workshop for business owners, specifically business owners, entrepreneurs. You will absolutely love this at Voco Brisbane, March 24 to 26. Bestseller event is the website, BEST, seller, SELLER, event, EVENT.com. And for those who want to connect with me, you can do that on Linktree, or my links are at linktree/Aldwyn, linktr.ee/Aldwyn. I have events. We've got the Global Good News Challenge every month as well, encouraging people to share their genius with the world and share gratitude and good news. And all of that helps to lift the energy on the planet and also to decrease depression and suicide rates. So please stay connected. If you like what you've seen today, give us a love in the social media channel you're watching us in now, and comment. Let us know what you got out of this. And do you have a book coming up? Let us know. Do you have a book, or do you want to do a book? Let us know in the comments, and we would love to hear from you. And share the love, of course. Share the love. Thank you so much for joining us here. We'll see you again on a future episode. Thank you so much, Andrew. It's been great to have you here on the show. And we'll sign out now. Have a beautiful day or night wherever you are in the world. Bye for now.